You know, the many lives of Frank Mahovlich can be described in maybe 500,000 words. He was a superstar with the Leafs, but Punch Imlach was always causing him problems. He was eventually traded to the Detroit Red Wings in one of the biggest blockbuster trades of the late 60s when he, Stemkowski, and Gary Unger were sent to the Red Wings for Normie Ullman, Paul Henderson, and Floyd Smith. At the time, the Maple Leafs and Red Wings were in 5th and 6th place, respectively, at the bottom of the East Division standings. He had 19 goals and 17 assists in 50 games that season and was a leading goal scorer in Maple Leaf history with 296 at the time of the deal. He joined a Red Wings team that also featured his younger brother, Pete. He said in a press conference announcing the trade, "Business is business, and if I can't please them here, maybe I will please them there." Now, at the time, ladies and gentlemen, they were very confused as to Mahovlich's style. He was suffering from chronic depression and tension and was having some rough seasons with Toronto. One of his detractors was one Milt Donnell, who made a page-one story in the Toronto Star saying Mahovlich is a sensitive, easily bruised individual who was carrying the Maple Leafs on his back, and, I don't know what else he had to do. Now in 71, you think the Red Wings would stay when Pete was there because he was playing on a line with Gordie Howe and Al Delvecchio, probably one of the greatest lines in Detroit history. He said his record for goals this season was 49. Initially, one of his teammates in Red Wings was his younger brother Peter, who split his time between the Wings and a minor league affiliate. Now, Peter eventually ended up in Montreal, but in 71, Red Wings GM Sid Abel wanted to get rid of coach Ned Harkness, who was overruled by team owner Bruce Norris. Once Harkness took over as GM, he got rid of players he deemed a threat to him. On January 13, 71, Mahovlich, who he considered a threat, was traded to the Habs for Redmond, Chanot, and Billy Collins. He was reunited with his brother, who would become a star player himself with the Canadiens. Mahovlich spent 3.5 seasons in Montreal, playing on the Stanley Cup winning teams of 71 and 73. During the 72 season, he had a career-high 96 points, which nearly matched the following season with 93 points. Now, allegedly, ladies and gentlemen, he was not felt he was getting paid enough by Montreal. When he was a member of Team Canada for the 72 Summit Series against the Soviet Union, he eventually left in 74 for the second Summit Series. He played for Team Canada even though he wasn't officially a WHA player because he hadn't skated any contests. He represented Canada again to 74 Summit, him and Henderson. Now, the Dayton Arrows who became the Houston Arrows, had drafted Mahovlich in a regular round of the WHA General Player Draft in February 12, 72, but he traded his rights away to the newly formed Toronto Toros in June of 74 in return for future considerations. Now, when he signed a 4-year contract with the Toros on June 1974, the WHA, he played for the Torontos and the Bulls until his retirement in 79 at the age of 41. While with the Bulls, Mahovlich, for some reason, was placed on an unproductive line with enforcers Frank Beaton, Seldon Beaton, and Dave Hansen, one of the Hansen brothers who had been in the movie Slapshot. According to head coach John Brophy, when a reporter asked Mahovlich what was wrong, he replied, "I don't know, but I seem to play a lot better with Howe and Delvecchio." Now, ironically, he did attempt to come back with the Red Wings in 79, but was unsuccessful, and he formally retired on October 7th of that year. Now, an NHL documentary about the Stanley Cup, Mahovlich did claim credit being the first player to hoist the Stanley Cup above his head after the Leafs' victory in the 62 finals. In the team locker room, Mahovlich said he held the cup, felt how light it was, and hoisted it above his head, which was then photographed. Don't really know because people would carry it, and maybe Beliveau had done that before Richard, but let's give him what it is. But let's look at these WHA stats, and they're quite interesting. He was always good for 35 to 40 goals and 40 to 50 assists, and that's what he got in 75. 73 contests with Toronto, 38 goals, 44 assists for 82 points with 27 minutes and penalties, 3 counters in a postseason. 76 with the Toros, 34 goals, 55 assists for 89 points. 77 injury-plagued year, 3 goals for 20 assists for 23 points and 17 contests. 78 on that strange line. 14 goals, 24 assists for 38 points and 2 points in the postseason. Now, he had equal stats in 72 and 74, 2 points in 6 games in both series. Now, inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame in 81 and the Canada Sports Hall of Fame in 1980. In 94, he was made a member of the Order of Canada. In 97, Mahovlich was ranked number 26 on the Hockey News list of 100 greatest hockey players, the highest-ranked player who had spent at least the majority of his career with the Maple Leafs. He was made senator in 98 by Jean Chrétien and retired in 2013 at a mandatory retirement age of 75. And, of course, he passed away at the age of 87. Actually, he hasn't passed away. What am I talking about? He's still living, thank God. I forgot that for a second. So it shows what I know, ladies and gentlemen. Now, his years with Toronto were the best probably in Toronto history. Calder Memorial winner in 58. NHL first All-Star team 61 and 63 with Toronto. He played in the All-Star game 59 to 65 inclusive and 67 to 69. NHL second All-Star team 62, 64, 65, 66, 69, and 70. Stanley Cup of Toronto 62, 63, 64, 67. Inaugural inductee in the World Hockey Association Hall of Fame, the Legends of the Game. He's number 27, of course, is retired, which is shared with Darryl Sittler. And 2017, he was part of the first group of players, but he named as one of the 100 greatest NHL players in history. Why was he so good, ladies and gentlemen? 6'1", 205, but 10 feet on skates. And the idea, him being in the WHA, was not say legitimize the association, but at the time, you had Paul Henderson, Bobby Hull, Gordie Howe, and Frank Mahovlich. And Jerry Cheevers. That was a big draw. But I think what happened, ladies and gentlemen, he joined the Toros to punch him black. There was no reason why Mahovlich had a reason to leave Montreal, but he felt he was with Montreal. I think in '74 he was considered like the number 3 or 4 player behind Cornway, Richard, and Dryden. Well, when Dryden was there, but Mahovlich, he's Toronto Toro years. There should be a documentary on his years there, because not too people get a second act, as we like to say. Now, at the time, John Bassett had owned the squad and gave him every opportunity to do his best, as we say. Now, because he played for St. Mike's before, the idea about the Toros, ladies and gentlemen, he was always good for the fans and good for the team. And there was some question, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, he moved to Birmingham. I would have liked to see another Toronto team in the NHL. You will never see it. Like, you'll never see a Hamilton team as well. But, I mean, if the Toronto Toros would have ever made the NHL, it would have been amazing. Because you have 2 teams in New York, the Islanders and the Rangers, but I think if any town deserves a second NHL team, it's Toronto. Because the fan base, like Toronto would be more like the Toros, like a veteran and bucket team, as we say. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's how Frank Mahovlich got all the way from Detroit Red Wings with a potential Stanley Cup challenger through Montreal to back to Toronto. Pretty freaky. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing here with our hockey podcast as part of Sports File, let us know in the like, comment, subscribe, or share.